Welcome to Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast, where our goal is to keep you informed, inspired, and a little entertained on all things diabetes. The information contained in this program is based on the experience and opinions of the Integrated Diabetes Services clinical team. Please discuss any changes to your treatment plan with your personal healthcare provider before implementing.
Hello, Trynamic Trio. So, just a little background. When we first started Trio, I started up just a little bit before Dana, Jenny, and Tavia, and we decided that we were going to call them the Trynamic Trio. And I gotta say, we should have worn our Trio shirts for this week.
Yeah, we should have. How did we not think about that? Next time we'll do this again.
Have to do a part two for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Just to wear the shirts.
Yep.
Mine's upstairs. I can totally go get it.
I am not that organized. I don't.
And they're purple, so that would all match. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway,
Purple. And it is perfect too. Just when you do some looking into why it's called Trio, it's a lot of it because they said that they were finding patterns of threes. So it's just funny that for you guys too, there's just that another pattern.
Yeah.
It's so sweet. But yeah, we definitely.
It's always fun to learn together too, I think.
Absolutely. And it's made it so much easier because there's so much to learn and everyone's question is my question.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you ask a question and you think, well, I didn't get to that question yet, but now you know when you kind of encounter that, you know the answer already, which is great.
Right.
It's so great. But yeah, I feel like Trio is something that we're definitely consistently just in a learning curve. I creepily go on the Facebook page and I search for the developers' names and see what they've posted just to make sure that I'm getting everything right.
Yeah, and I go on Discord to see if people are talking about things that I'm seeing or if someone's already asked a question, then I can find what's the math behind the scene on this one little sub-menu item so that I can understand it better. Mm-hmm. It's very helpful.
Well, and I think more than anything, Trio is one of those diabetes applications. The rabbit hole is never ending. You can go dig as deep and dark as you want to in a positive way, but it's just never ending.
Truly. Yeah. But I mean, it's absolutely incredible. How have you guys felt about using it? Because I feel like all of us used IAPS and kind of went back to loop. We used Trio, the original, and went back to loop. I used free APS-X and I used Fax. I don't know if anyone else used that.
Well, who of this group is using Dynamic? Because I am using Dynamic, but not, what am I not using?
Or are you not using Sigmoid?
Sigmoid. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm using Dynamic with Sigmoid and with the ISF side of things. Well, in the basal, but not the carb ratio.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think we've had a learning process. As you said, Kathryn, we've all started out as loopers coming from conventional pumping. We moved to looping. I mean, as of this coming October, I would be technically looping or using DIY for about 8 years. And then, knowing enough people, again, it's nice within the diabetes community being connected because you know enough people to say, I'm super comfortable with this, but look, these fancy features look like they would help the variables in my life for reasons, that are even more beneficial. So let's try this. And I think it's nice to have the hand holding too, because as we just said, it's nice to have a connection to say, well, I'm not the only one building this. If I have a question, I can reach out to this person. Or I think last summer was when we all started trying Trio, right? Mm-hmm. And in our texting Trynamic Trio group, we all started complaining about similar things. Why isn't, this doesn't seem to be working. I'm going back to loop, or this is an issue. And so we could bounce ideas. But I think the reason we've all now stuck with Trio is because it has gotten to the development stage of, I want to say I trust it like I trusted loop. Where I ended with loop, I now have that trust and even more for Trio because of the pieces that have been built into it that are just more, they add to the variability management in life.
And I would also say, as my understanding of all, I wouldn't want to say all, that would be a misnomer, but as my understanding of many of the different features and settings adjustments, how it influences what Trio does or doesn't do, I think that also builds confidence, because if you just look at it as there's this thing and there are so many options to adjust, and I don't like what my blood sugar is doing, If you never move past that stage, you haven't really given Trio the fair chance that it deserves.
Right.
And it's hard to go from one system to another. I don't care if it's a standard system to loop the first time. It doesn't, or one standard system to another, kind of out of the box system. You have to learn how those algorithms work to then adjust the right settings or expectations, as the case may be, in order to get the most from that system. And that's hard for us, right? Like, humans, we're creatures of stability and predictability, even though diabetes, of course, doesn't do that for us. So then forcing change on ourselves, we have to always stop and ask along the way, like, whose idea was this? Why am I
doing this? Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point of when you move from one system, even if it's an open source like Loop to Trio, you have to rethink all of your settings, because I think part of my frustration last summer was that I really did have to adjust things that worked perfectly on Loop, but absolutely did not work perfectly on Trio because the algorithm was different.
And from a standpoint of others coming into consideration of Trio, I'm really glad that I started Loop where I did, because I had come from a conventional pump that had no ability to navigate for me. I was the thinker of everything the pump was going to do for me. I put it in. And there's a learning phase to each of these algorithms and starting to use. And you make a great point, Dana, in that I went to Loop under the kind of assistance of somebody I'd worked with who was looping in pregnancy. And I was like, gosh, why am I not doing this? Clearly it does a phenomenal job beyond what I can do. And she helped me build eons ago, when it was like reading the hieroglyphics on the wall to build, right? And after 30 days, I was texting with, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm really frustrated. And she said, Jenny, you have to step back and you have to let Loop do what it's going to do.
Right.
And then you have to evaluate your data and see what to change. I was used to being the manipulator. Mm-hmm. I turned all my own dials.
Right.
And wasn't really I was like overstepping the system, which I still didn't really get the algorithm quite yet. But I think that's valuable to know when you move into an even more potentially aggressive, more dials to change like Trio has. My point being, I think there's a stepping stone plan of use. I don't typically suggest for somebody to go from MDI or even a normal pump system directly into Trio, because I think there's too much difference. As you said, there are a lot of settings that are not going to look the same.
Absolutely. Right.
Kathryn, you asked us what features we think are useful. Yeah. Is that where we were going?
I'm like, which ones do you feel like you initially messed up? Like, I know for me, the first time I started, I saw the duration of insulin action. I was like, nah, and I adjusted.
Yeah. Let me change that.
Yeah. And then it honestly messed things up. So sticking with that hour action curve, the predictions are going to make a lot more sense. And it's just tracking the true duration of insulin action of the insulin that we're using.
Right. I had an issue with the bolus percentage because I could not get that in my head that I didn't want more insulin up front. And it does a really nice job of the default. It's 70%. And then you just kind of let the algorithm catch up on the flip side. And so I changed that a lot until I got settled on it.
I think there too is a mental flip of, especially coming from being a Loop user into Trio, the difference in how the systems see a food entry, right? And how they follow it, right? I mean, from a baseline of understanding, Trio follows food and ends up covering on hit of the food, whereas Loop ends up seeing a carb entry even here and now. Like, you put the carbs in, it's starting to impact your blood sugar, whereas Trio has
a little bit more linear, I think, on Loop.
Yeah. And Trio really tries to keep up with that change and hitting it on need. And that was, again, an understanding difference in using one to the other system.
And like for me, I have slower digestion, slower than what I had 10 years ago, let's say. So I can't just 100% bolus up front for most things, or I'll go low in the first hour or two. Now, if I were to eat something with a really high GI all by itself, glycemic index, okay, yeah, pre-bolus needed, give me all the insulin, maybe a super bolus even. But for just normal foods that are a combination of fat and fiber and protein and carbohydrates of whatever variety, right? Then Trio gives me more options on how easy options, like where I don't have to break my brain to try to decide exactly what to do before eating. I can just say, this digests fast. I'm going to enter it as a normal bolus and take what it recommends. Or I know that this is going to digest a little slower for me, and I can hit the reduce bolus button that I already have programmed to give the percentage that I've tried out and adjusted over time. Then I'll start my food, enter the carbs, hit the reduce bolus. I get the smaller amount, and then it does a really great job of following it. I have a lot less post-meal lows and above and below target than I used to because of how the algorithm follows that food entry after settings have been adjusted. Not saying I never have out of target glucose levels. That would be also a fat lie, big, giant non-truth, right? But I just think the system is able to help micromanage, and that lets me do my job and focus on life and my family and my clients a lot more without me in there like, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that. I'm doing a lot less of that over the last few months for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much you can individualize because, as you say, like, we're all different. The way it impacts you is totally different than the impact I see. So being able to dial in the AutoSense min, the AutoSense max, the max UAM and SMB basal minutes, and change all of our percentages to get it like this perfect system packaged perfectly for us. It's incredible what they did.
Yeah.
And continue to develop. That's what I like is that they really do take the voice of the people saying, this is nice, but can something else be shifted or changed here to improve upon this? And the nice thing is with the way that it's built now, we were just talking even before doing this recording about the build and really understanding the navigation of how to build it the right way and make sure it all maneuvers the right way, because the updates that fall behind are important to keep up with, or you may not have the most fancy feature that could be something that's an advantage or another dial for you to utilize.
Yeah. Well, I think the build, I mean, this is a really important thing to talk about too, because especially with Trio, a lot of people are going straight to dev. They're totally skipping over running it in main. And the steps to build dev initially, pretty easy to follow for depending on the person. And so people are doing that, but then they're not realizing that they need to sync the fork, right, guys?
Yes.
Lesson learned. Lesson learned.
Who is guilty of not syncing the fork?
Not today. I'm not guilty today, but last week. Or 2 weeks ago, I don't know.
I'm going to sync that fork later.
Right. And Kathryn is our behind the scenes. Kathryn, are you around if I do this today?
Yes.
Can you help me if I get an error?
Can you help me out?
Yeah. And it is truly incredible just like watching people, because there's not as many Trio users as there is Loop users, but still on that page, the response time is great. The answers with the detail given are so good. And I like that, like, some of the people that are involved in the development team are literally in there. So you know that the answer you're getting is
the right one.
Yeah.
Well, holy smokes, the whole open source community from Loop to Trio to AAPS, I mean, so generous with their time and their knowledge. It's just amazing. It's such a beautiful place for people. And so I would say, you know, even if you're not comfortable with the build, right, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be comfortable with the algorithm, because I think they're really two separate skill sets and two separate knowledge bases.
Another thing I was just thinking about while we were talking that is a really strong feature of the Trio platform is the onboarding that now exists. Walk you through, if you haven't used Trio before, or even if you have, and now you're going to a different version and you have to go through from the beginning to set all of the settings up, there's such great detail in the documentation. It's very clear that even some of the components that really are complex math,
absolutely,
there's a brief description to give you a clue. And here's the default, by the way. So if you're starting out, pick the default. And then now you have an idea about what this feature is. So if you're having trouble, you could think, maybe that one setting could help me with this struggle that I'm having. Let me go back and read about it again. And I just think it's if you want to be involved in your diabetes management and understand the algorithm that the system you're using, how it works, in order to continually be able to improve or maintain your variability and time and range, I think it's a really well-developed system that gives you what you need as the individual living with diabetes to make those decisions clearly. I don't know, I need to adjust something. I'll just try this and hope it works out. You don't have to do it that way. For what's in the app itself, with searching and the description.
Right. The searching feature is wonderful.
And online, you can reach out and ask, like we just asked a question today, and how does the math behind the scenes really work for the reduce bolus button? What happens? We know it happens up front, but then how does Trio mathematically, what is it doing behind the scenes? And now we have that piece. It's just getting those types of detail. Now, not everybody will want that. That's fine.
Right. It is definitely not for everybody. It is because there are so many. What did we hear? It was like 120 different settings. I mean, it was something astronomical. I'm probably overinflating it, but
changed.
Yeah. But I think it's part of our role, at least my expectation for myself, is to continue to get more and more of those options very well understood, and thinking about, if this option changes, what other impacts downstream might we need to adjust to help get it balanced, to get optimal management for this specific person's case, right? Or when someone new comes and says, I started Trio and my glucose is not doing what I want it to do, help. I want to be able to look at their settings and right away, and I feel like we're there now where we can see big obvious things that are obvious to us. We've been looking and learning and doing, and we can get things toned down and cleaned up right away. And then we can dive into the specifics, like a really physically active day, a really hot day, a really stressful day, whatever comes up, and then use those additional kind of advanced feature options to help continue to improve it. So I feel like where we're at as a team, from what I get from our conversations and how we're seeing our time and range in Trio overall, I think we're there as a team, which is great. It's a great place to be, because in the beginning, it's so many unknowns. It makes you feel really uneasy. Like, I'm supposed to be the expert and I am not, and I don't like it. So I think
I was the first to say, I am just not at a place in my life at the moment that I'm going to enter Trio. And I think I stopped and then started again a couple months later.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, and we still can learn, which is interesting, right? There's still every day a new question from a client comes up, or a new, a hiccup on the screen that we didn't notice before. And there's still plenty of things for us to ask about and continue to learn, which tells you it's complex, which is cool. I mean, it's built for us, which is just really,
which is great.
So happy.
Yeah.
Word from our sponsor. Byram Healthcare understands that managing diabetes isn't one size fits all. With a full range of CGMs, insulin pumps, and diabetes supplies from top brands, Byram makes it easy to get what you need, hassle-free, shipped right to your door. And Byram's team of experts helps navigate insurance so you can focus on living your best life. Ready for better diabetes care? Visit byramhealthcare.com/podcast or call 866-692-8024 and select option 3. And now, back to our program.
I like as you brought up the onboarding, and I always make sure for people who are interested in moving into use of Trio, especially with the newest sort of version of Trio, explaining to them that onboarding is really valuable. Don't do this at 10 o'clock at night expecting that you're just going to plug in all your settings and get going, because the onboarding process, as you said, Tavia, is like, read everything. As it moves you to the next screen, the explanations are there for why are you setting it this way? Why is the default here? And then as you use it and you find things that you feel like they could be tweaked, the search feature or even that little eye gives you more information. It says, is this what I want to touch? Tap that eye and see what's behind it. How does it describe this piece, and what is it going to do for you if you set it? I even like the ones, there's a lot of like cautionary, like medical type of information too, that says, really, unless you really know what you're doing, don't touch this dial.
Right. This is not for the basics. Right.
Yeah. It's a nice big block, like pretty much telling people, get out of there. Yeah, it's really good.
And I like some of the other features that I think are really helpful for any of the open source people. Then you already are going to utilize, if you're using open source, you're going to utilize temp targets and overrides. That's one of the beautiful pieces of one of these systems that wins every time compared to what you can get from the sort of out of the box systems. And what I really like about Trio's options is that you can not only, so let's pretend I have a yard work override where I'm going to need a lot less insulin. Inside that,
do you really have a yard work override?
I don't, but I should. I need to make one. I have other ones that are set up that I just pick that work that
Yeah.
way, right? But maybe I should need yard work for this time of year.
Yeah.
So I want a higher target for my glucose. I want lower amount of basal coming in, but then you can also sub-select, do I want the corrections to be this strong as normal?
Right.
Do I want the doses for carbs to be as strong as usual?
Yeah.
And of the corrections, there are 2 components that you can also sub-modify in there, which is really smart.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I even like the fact that in those, sort of adjustments, you can set whether the SMBs stay on
Right.
or not, which makes it just enormously valuable when you are in a much more sensitive time and you think, I don't want it kicking out extras. Just give me some extra positive temping if I need it, but I don't want these extra hits.
Like if I go on a bike ride and I'm close to target when I'm starting, and especially if it's hot out, I don't need any extra help. Like just leave that alone. And
I think for exercise, that is a huge difference compared to other systems.
But for someone else, if I were going to go on my ride and let's say my glucose was elevated, had a delicious lunch, wild guess on the carbs, and I'm way up there, I might want it to help me out a little bit because I'm not going to feel that great on my ride if I'm that elevated and it would take a long time to get it to where I want it. I might want it to give me some cautionary little blips, So
there you can adjust the time. They're all adjustable, which is so awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Do you guys use the shortcuts for Trio at all?
I had one set up for 7:30 a.m. to kick on my morning walk override.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm doing more in the afternoon and outside in the yard and things. So now I just ignore it. But I had that set up.
I have one for a Sunday yoga class that goes off every week. Sometimes I don't go to yoga, but it goes off every time.
I switched the shortcut to ask me if I wanted to enable it.
Oh, I should do that. I should do that.
Way I still have the choice and it's still there to remind me in case I had a plan for it. That's super handy because I'm the forgetter. When I used some of the other pump systems, remembering to set something ahead of time to exercise, I'm the worst at it. I know what works, but do I implement it? Really hard to do. And then remembering to turn it off later too, right?
I think that was one of our big things that we really missed, those scheduling of the overrides from Loop moving to Trio. And then the shortcuts really helped to kind of satisfy that.
Right.
Yeah. What you have with Loop too, I just feel like shortcuts are over.
Right.
They're just underused in general, I feel like.
I think that's right.
So if you're listening to this, use shortcuts. You can even use it to bolus, which is crazy for Trio. So, if you
can tell Siri to give you a bolus. I haven't done it. I've seen people talking about it. Do you have anybody doing that?
I don't know.
Interesting.
Do you have to ask nicely?
Maybe. Like, Siri, did you hear my question? Like if you were in the middle of making your clay pots, Dana.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that would be amazing because I can't touch. Yeah, I've got slimy clay covered hands.
Dana, you should make us all Trynamic Trio mugs so we can have
mugs. It'll be on my list. I have a long list of things to make at the pottery studio. Yeah.
How are you guys interacting with it? Like, I know I enter everything. I'm not on a GLP-1 and I don't want my blood sugar going up post meal too. I know Trio can fix it. Of course, I've accidentally forgotten to bolus and it's super quick, but yeah, I don't like that post meal rise. So all entries for me. How about you guys?
Yeah, for sure. It's helped me add a lot more protein because it's just right there, which I love. That's amazing.
Any protein anymore.
It is. I've only played with it more recently. Recent being like the last 2 weeks. You guys know me well enough that, like you, Kathryn, like everything I bolus for, like it gets entered. I try really hard to make sure my pre-bolus is there, even though I have a busy life, kids, job, whatever. But in the past 2 weeks, I've tried some things where I actually, and I have to thank Teresa for giving a little bit of like hey, you can do it, right? Like just don't tell it anything and let it cover it. And I can say that despite it going probably above the high target that I really want to stay under post meal, having not entered anything at all, it does do a good job. I've not gone over 180. It's kept me, for the most part, honestly, like under 160, and it's turned it around, and I've not gone low.
That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah,
I think
which is just magical. Yeah.
It is. So if I had looser targets on the top end,
or
maybe I would do that more often.
If you're going to transition to do that more, then you might strengthen something to catch it.
Yeah.
That's something else you could do. So for me, I'm an inter also, because I think most of us have had, whenever you got diagnosed with diabetes, I was pre-carb counting. That's how long I've had diabetes. But since carb counting was a thing, it's been
It's
drilled in.
ingrained. Yeah. I mean, you look at a food and you think of the carbs. That's just what I do. Yeah.
And so the only times I haven't is once or twice. I've been busy and I intended to bolus, but didn't yet because I could see it was coming down. And so I thought, well, I'll do this in a little bit. And then I get on a client visit and my glucose is rising. And then Trio fixed it without anything untoward happening. And I thought, okay, well, that wasn't the worst thing that could have happened. That's pretty nice. And then a couple of times I tried it after Teresa's nudge, like, really, you could. And I found that it can handle, for me anyway, the things I threw at it that are 15 to 20 grams of carbs.
Not terribly big.
Yeah.
Yeah, without going above 140 if I'm starting off at like 90 or 100. It just does it.
Yeah.
But I think that reminds me of something we haven't talked about yet, which is that cone of certainty. I love that.
The cone of uncertainty.
Yeah, I love it.
I actually had someone tell me that they didn't like that recently. So did you know that's something you can change?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course you can, right? Because it's Trio. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it because it gives a good pictorial of the reality of every moment that you make a decision. So you spend 20 minutes making the best decision you could possibly measure and weigh and calculate.
And there's
in
still
reality, your glucose could go this way, that way, or head straight. And so you do the best you can with what you have. You have your settings reined in, and then let Trio accommodate by reducing or adding so that your glucose is more stable, and let go of that mind gymnastics thing that we've been trained to do to try to make it all work out perfectly all the time. You don't have to do it.
Because we know it's not going to go to a specific number, right? That's just not how diabetes works. And so I just love that.
I think what it's reminded me of, and originally we all really disliked the multiple dotted lines.
Yes.
In the original, right, where there was no cone of uncertainty. I've enjoyed having it, as you said, in a way, but I think of it differently in that we can't always 100% have a plan for what's coming in the next hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, whatever. And so it gives the idea that all plans considered, I'm expecting to probably be in the midpoint of that cone of uncertainty.
Right.
But Trio is also expecting something could change. And it's giving you this wide range to be able to tell you, you know what, but we have a plaque in our kitchen that says life happens here.
Yeah.
And it's 100% the truth. You could plan your life to a T, and there's always going to be something that changes and shifts. And that's what that cone reminds me of, is that Trio is here to catch within that for me.
I do like it also. I use it for the predictability of, with my slower digestion, if I'm eating a meal that I know is not just going to hit right away, I can change the dose recommended. So if I've already said, I'm going to hit reduce bolus button, and then the cone of uncertainty is showing me that I'm at most likely to top out at some number that's way too low, and most of the cone is down in the low flat line, not aiming for life, right? I could back off the dose further, and it will show me a modified view of what it predicts. And I can think about what I know, like, was I just exercising? Am I about to? Is my prediction of that food really going to match what this is predicting or not? And I can go ahead and I can fiddle with that dose a little bit to ensure I have a much less chance of having a post-meal hypo, which I feel are some of the worst, because you have bolus on board, you have not yet digested, and you might have a full stomach. And so then getting the treatment in.
And you're full.
And you're full. Yeah. So inconvenient.
Yeah.
Somewhat scary sometimes. I mean, we'd be talking little doses with reduced bolus, but still, it's just, those are one of the biggest annoyances to me anyway. I love that. It's so helpful for me to be able to just go, okay, the reduced bolus still heads me, looks like a pretty good chance of a big bad drop. I don't want that. I'll cut that in half. How does that do? And I'm not doing math. I'm cutting it in half, but I'm not like, let me do 30% less. Let me do 18.6. It's just cutting the dose in half until the cone looks reasonable and I move forward. Right. And I can do that so quickly. And I love that, because obviously we all are thinkers with our doses, right? And so the amount of effort and the amount of less complex math I'm having to do, I love it.
Better.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think another great question for all of us to go over is what we're choosing to use. Like, are you guys running default auto sends? Are you running log? Or are you running Sigmoid?
Good
Where you
question.
at?
What are you doing, Kathryn?
Sigmoid.
Sigma doing?
I haven't moved over to that just yet, but it's on the to-do list to kind of play around with that. I've
And I'm
just kind of
adjusting
stayed
August.
tried and true, mostly defaults, except, a lot of the adjustments, depending on different days, different activities, different,
I think
different
that
things going on.
Sigmoid
I'm kind of right there with you, Dana. I also have not switched over to the Sigmoid yet, but I have a lot of the adjustments
A
as
lot,
preset
yeah.
with differences in the SMBs and
Yes.
whether it's on or off and the percents and even target adjustments and things that I have, again, named for certain scenarios. So yeah, I haven't switched over yet.
what I think Sigmoid's helping with theoretically, is it true or is that just my feeling? I don't know. I should have you guys look at my data and we should compare notes on calendars to see if you think the same thing I do. I think Sigmoid for me helps minimize the difference in my glucose for ovulation and when I would have a period day. I don't feel like I have to put overrides on to help conquer the insulin resistance, and I don't have to back the doses off as often. I still have to sometimes for the first like 1 or 2 days with an override, but I feel like it handles that better. And I feel like it handles the certain sites just aren't as efficient as others, where I'm not feeling like I have to chase myself with adjusting the settings as often. So that's my 2 cents for my N of 1 with Sigmoid.
Right. I like that Sigmoid doesn't use total daily dose as much within its calculation. I think that's a big help for me. And for a lot of the littles that I work with, I'm having them run Sigmoid as well because
That
of
makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
And yeah, just like Tavia, I literally in my adjustment section, I went to show someone the other day and I was like, this is really shocking. I don't have a single one in there.
Oh my gosh, I've got like a choose your own adventure option.
Right, I know. I've got like so many of them.
I know. I was like,
Basics in there.
I mean, that just shows that,
Wow. Yeah,
I'm just
that's
living,
kind of amazing.
That is
right?
amazing.
I know. Yeah, I'm walking
But
gravy, riding
the
my
value
bike.
of what you're saying, Kathryn, is that with Sigmoid enabled,
Mhm.
you feel like it does a good enough job, not really even having to have adjustments set up. And I know, you exercise, you have a busy schedule, you also work with little kids outside of what you do, with so you've got a lot of stuff going on too, in which case I'd probably have about 10 more adjustments.
Like it really is. It's incredible that I don't have to do anything. And I mean, my time in range, like if I wanted to really take it to the next level, then yeah, I would probably put some more adjustments in. But like if you look at my stats, and things have been just so wild, as you guys know, with my life recently. But
Yes.
for the month, 70 to 140 time in range is 83.7.
I mean, yeah, that's amazing.
Awesome.
That out.
Amazing.
What?
So this is my month. 63 to 180 range is 94.9. 63 to 140 is 67.3. Does that say 67? I'm reading it backwards. 67.3. Below 63 is 0.6. And average glucose is about 125. And that is
Amazing.
with me
So good.
eating boluses and underdosing and all the things that eating pizza a lot because
Normal things.
Because it's summer.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, I think we'll have to go in a deep dive another time with more of the options that we're doing on Trio, because I think we're all having great success and definitely still learning from each other.
And as things get developed more and change, we will have more of our Trio discussions. We'll have to remember to wear our Trio shirts then.
Next time, for sure.
Yes.
All in purple.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Love it.
All right.
Thank you for joining us today for the podcast. Myself, Tavia, Jenny, and Dana all shared our experiences using Trio, the latest version. So we all got to beta test and are now running the latest version of Dev. We talk about the different functionalities that we're each utilizing, why we like some of the different functionalities, what it took for us to dial some of the things in, and how we all are learning on our own and still in a state of learning this beautiful, lovely system that we have the option to build and use thanks to the open source community.
Thanks for tuning in to Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast is brought to you by Integrated Diabetes Services, where experience meets expertise, passion meets compassion, and diabetes care is personal because we live it too. Our team of clinicians, all living with type 1 diabetes, understands the challenges firsthand. We're here to help no matter where you are in the world. From glucose management to self-care strategies, the latest tech, sports and exercise, weight loss, type 1 pregnancy, and emotional well-being, we've got you covered. We offer consultations in English and Spanish via phone, video chat, email, and text. Want to learn more? Visit integrateddiabetes.com or email info@integrateddiabetes.com to schedule a consultation. On behalf of Think Like a Pancreas, the podcast, I'm Gary Shiner, wishing you a fantastic week ahead, and don't forget to think like a pancreas.